Welcome to Talk Tennis, Felix. Well, thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about all things Penn tennis balls today. But first, can you introduce yourself to the audience and explain your role and how long you've been with HEAD Penn?
Yes, I'm the product director for North America, and I've been with HEAD Penn now, actually this week, 5 years.
Oh, congrats.
So it's exciting, yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is a fun topic for me. I know that's it sounds so geeky.
It is.
But it is. I was referencing, I had a chance to interact with some women's tennis players over the last week, and no one understands that like there are different tennis ball options, and they don't really understand anything about like how to pick a tennis ball. So from what I understand, Penn is revitalizing their tennis balls, and you can take it from there.
Yes, so there's definitely tennis balls that are for different types of levels of players. So I think it's a really interesting topic because everyone just thinks about it as a fuzzy yellow ball.
Yeah.
And that costs right now somewhere between $3 to $7 a can. But when you actually see what's going on behind the scenes and how much work goes into each and every single tennis ball that is being produced and how many are being produced in the world is super exciting. So I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about it on what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, if you want to just start breaking down how a tennis ball is made. And that stat, I wrote it down in my notes earlier. You guys make the most tennis balls every year globally, but it was like, what was the number?
So right now we're actually in a factory in China.
Okay.
And the factory is already the biggest in the world. And we make, in tennis balls, everything is done in dozen. So we make 9 million dozen tennis balls a year. So that's over 100 million tennis balls a year.
That's wild.
And now we're actually in the transformation of moving over to the Philippines. So we're running both factories right now side by side, but in the future coming only out of the Philippines. And out of there, we're going to have the capacity of 14 million dozen tennis balls a year. So
that's crazy.
1.5 times.
Even more tennis balls for everyone, which is great because I'm seeing more people playing tennis. It makes my heart happy. More tennis balls. And I just said off camera that I'm a ball snob. So I'm always opening new cans.
Absolutely. Yeah, I brought a toolkit here with you for you so I can show you a little bit on the whole process. And I think that is fairly unique to HEAD Penn moving forward. So right now, this is the natural rubber that is being harvested from the trees. Currently, all manufacturers purchase rubber from a third party. However, we now that we have moved to the Philippines actually have the capacity and availability to work with the farmers directly. They're based right next to our factory. Mm-hmm. So we can go really from farm all the way to court and produce our own rubber that is first coming in as a block. You can you can smell as well. My
God. Wait, before you go to the next one, because you were really explaining this, talk about the process.
Yes, so rubber is being harvested from the trees and goes into like these big buckets, and then after that it takes about 30 days where we have to first wash it. Then dry it out again, wash it, dry it out. It's about 5 to 6 times where we go through this process. And then they turn into these clumps here, actually. So where they're like pushed together. And again, the goal is to fully dry them out. The big advantage for us moving forward is going to be that we have the direct control of the supply chain here. Is when you buy rubber from the third party, you actually get some inconsistencies because the third parties want to sell these by weight. And as you can imagine, if there's water still in there and not fully dried out, there's definitely some inconsistencies in the ball quality. And in the end, consistency, I think you heard me earlier talk about this over and over again. Consistency in tennis balls is the number one thing consumers actually want.
This is crazy because it's like, I'm smelling it. I know that's weird. But it like awkwardly smells like tennis ball, which we all know what that smells like.
Yeah.
But also like a little bit like you can smell like sappy, like a sap because it comes straight from the tree, which it's just wild. Like Absolutely. To think that like just the rubber of the tennis ball takes that long.
Yes, absolutely. And then after that whole process, some additives are being put into it and we get these half shells here.
That's crazy.
So obviously they're heated up and then with a machine put into these half shells. And you can play around there with different thicknesses and also different materials, additives that you put in there. So because every tennis ball plays a little bit different. So you get different rebound, different hardness, different stiffness of the ball. In the end, the goal is for each manufacturer, again, consistency. You want all the 3 or 4 balls within the same can to play the exact same. So in the end, the ITF, they have specs within that we have to fall into. And within actually our factory, now we have taken measurements to even tighten those specs, because obviously we want a lot more consistency within the balls. And therefore, if you can imagine, if a ball from a deflection rate, for example, bounces on the lower end in the same can as a ball that bounces on the higher end of the deflection rate, a consumer is going to think the lower end ball is dead, even though it technically falls into the ITF specs. But yeah, I think that's a big push for us moving forward, as well as our workers in the factory now actually not being paid by quantity, but now being actually paid by quality. So quality is a big update that we want to make on the Penn and then also on the head side in the European countries.
That's awesome. And you shared with us in our meeting earlier, what are the ITF specs that you have to fall into? Yeah,
so from a rebound perspective, it's somewhere around 52 to 59 inches. The PSI that is in the pressure that is in the ball is somewhere around 10 to 13 PSI. There's a hardness spec. There's a bunch of different specs, but usually the hardness, the PSI, and then also the rebound are kind of the 3 key ones that we want to follow.
And that's a pretty wide range.
Absolutely.
We all get annoyed and I said the other day, tennis players love to have something to blame. If you had one ball bouncing at 52 and the other ball bouncing at 59, that would really bother me.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we really have taken measurements within the company and factory to make sure that this is not happening.
Which is we have talked to death about quality control in rackets. So now we have quality control in tennis balls.
Yeah.
There was so much today where I was like, oh my goodness, now we're shopping for tennis balls almost the same way we shop for rackets and strings.
And it should be, because when you know how much effort goes into this, and it's a very interesting stat, actually. One of our former business managers has shared in 2023, I believe, at a sales meeting. When you look at the cost of a can of tennis balls in 1970, it was somewhere around $2.99. When you compare it to the way of how inflation worked, a tennis ball can should be, in the US at least, somewhere around the $15 to $20 price. However, because the consumer is not willing to pay that, now the price is still at somewhere in the $6 to $7 range. So
yeah, I get that question a lot too. Is which company can I get a discount with, or how do I get a discount on cases of balls? And that's always a big answer. Is we're not making money on balls because the margins are so tight, because it's so much production to make this.
Yeah, and I think that's a big misconception as well within the market right now, that companies have taken cost measurements or cost cutting during COVID, which is actually not the case. I do want to clear that up here, because I know I see that a lot out in the market, that people think that during COVID we changed the material or we used lesser grade materials. It's absolutely not true. The real thing is that at one point in 2020 and 2021, tennis balls were in the top 10 Forbes list of highest, most sought after commodities in the US out of everything. So now that I explained to you, there's third parties involved, and everyone ran into a bottleneck supply situation. Plus, we had a situation where, during COVID, producing the balls in China, we actually had to keep the balls for 30 days in quarantine.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Things kept being backed up and backed up and backed up. And we were actually the only company that kept our production open, whereas our competitors had it closed for 5 to 6 months. So we were able to continue to supply while people just wanted to start playing tennis.
Right, yeah.
Because you couldn't play anything else.
Yeah, tennis blew up, thankfully.
So yeah, there definitely came some issues with it, and I know now obviously we have fixed them, and we're excited to move forward with all the exciting changes.
For sure. And I think that's something like I want to like repeat, because I actually took a break earlier and was up on the floor talking to some people, because we've got a bunch of tennis geeks out here. And I was like, oh, we just learned about the new Pro Penn balls, and they're like, oh, what's changed? And I was like, well, and one of the first questions was, is the factory still in China? I said, actually, they're working on moving everything to the Philippines. They're going to have complete control. They're doing their own rubber. It's like, it's really cool because you're controlling everything now, which is showing obviously in the new production. But let's talk about something else that blew my mind today, because again, I dove deep on tennis balls before. I knew all about a weave versus a pinpoint. I didn't realize that you guys, and that's why I was like, maybe you weren't on that podcast. You now have this woven felt.
Correct. So for the consumer, there's two different types of felt that are currently being used, and one is called a needle felt. So a needle felt has the advantages of being a little bit more durable. It's a lot faster and a little bit more consistent. So in the past, we've always, on all of our balls, including the Pro Penn Marathon, have always used a needle felt ball. So it's basically the sheet of the felt is being laid out into a sheet, and then there's multiple sheets on top of each other, and then like needles basically punching into it, so that it's going to be a fairly hard and secure surface. Versus now, we are actually moving to, it's called a woven felt. So you can see this here. It's a lot looser material, and the felt is being woven into each other. And it gives you a lot more access to spin. It gives you also a lot more comfort. And I think the third big point is, because it's a little bit more flexible, it makes our seams look a lot cleaner. So you can actually see it here on the new ball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, super clean seams.
Yeah.
And I know that's something consumers have talked about with the current Pro Penn Marathon ball, that our seams looked sometimes more off compared to our competitors.
Okay.
So I think this definitely will help. And again, us being based now in the Philippines gives us the consistency with not only producing our own rubber, but also when you think about being in the Philippines, the weather every day is going to be the same.
Okay.
Besides maybe 1 month in November.
Okay.
So I know you talked about it on the string side, and then also on the racket side. Different weather and different weather patterns in terms of humidity, warmth, etc., actually has an impact on how materials react.
Okay.
So now we have even better consistency producing the product, while we know how the materials react to the weather.
That's crazy. Wow. That's awesome though. So we're seeing an update on the Marathon ball. We're calling it the Marathon Plus, right?
Correct. It's going to be the Pro Penn Marathon Plus. The launch is going to be in July, later this year. And there's going to be a few updates. One, obviously, we talked about the core. It's still going to be the same core as our current Pro Penn Marathon ball.
Okay.
However, the materials, again, are coming out of the Philippines now.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot more consistency. On top of that, we also have the new woven felt. Right. So players will hit with a lot more spin. The ball will feel a lot softer on impact. And but at the same time, the Marathon has always stood for the most durable ball in the market. So we still wanted to keep that as is. And that's where the rubber plays a big part in that. On top of that, has a lot better seams. And last but not least, we're actually using, it's called our Smart Optic 360. So we're using a high visibility felt so players can see the ball a lot quicker. And also from a durability side, the ball looks brighter and yellower longer.
Have you guys used that before on anything?
Yes, we've actually used it in the past as well. We've never really called it out too much, but I think it's while we did a bunch of our testing with the competitors, it was a huge point of notice for a lot of the play testers that said, like, hey, I can see the ball better. I can see how it spins and rotates better. And also, I feel like it lasts longer because it's not getting dull as quickly. I
feel like, I know we've had a chance to play test some balls for you guys, not knowing what the heck we were play testing. But I remember there were certain balls in the basket that we have downstairs that definitely were much brighter. I was going to say shone bright, but I'm guessing that was maybe the optic.
Absolutely.
Yellow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. To the point where it stands out, which is nice.
It is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I want to kind of like be able to tell the audience what different things mean. So like let's talk about the core. Like a core. If it's a thicker core, what does that mean and what is that going to feel like, and would we see a thicker core compared to a thinner core in any of the Penn balls?
So there's going to be a part 2 potentially to this, where we talk a little bit about the thicker core, maybe towards the end of the year, early next year, because there's some other work in the pipeline. A thicker core will have usually a more responsive rebound. Again, it depends on what additives are in it and how the core is set up. But with us, so right now the thinner core on the Pro Penn Marathon will play a little bit faster.
Okay.
Still will feel the current marathon feeling of the ball coming off the strings fairly fast, but at the same time being very durable. Whereas the thicker core will have more reaction to the ground.
Okay.
So you will get more rebound in terms of height. So that's the big point in terms of the core.
And so when you are out there, or I'm out there, or whoever's out there, and we're like, oh man, this ball feels like a rock. It feels heavy. What's happening when that happens?
I think a big portion is there's obviously a lot of different factors that can lead to that. One, it could be the core. 2, it actually could be the felt. And like I said, if it is a needle felt ball, which, again, I'm not saying a needle felt ball is a bad thing, but everything has pros and cons. So a woven felt ball will feel a lot softer on impact. The third thing is how you store the balls.
Absolutely.
If you store the balls in cold conditions, I used to play college in northern Arizona, which it gets cold at night, and the balls were in a shed. You come early in the morning to practice at 7 a.m. and the ball's set at like 35 degrees, the balls will feel extremely heavy. So always store the balls at kind of room temperature, which that's really important. Also too high is not good either. Yeah. So that has a big impact as well.
That's funny. Anytime like in the winter, anything in the morning, it's like when you're, especially if you're like feeding, and like coaches and teaching pros know, but like you're feeding balls and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that was such a bad feed. You're like, the ball's literally not bouncing. It's not my fault.
Absolutely.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one of the most iconic balls in tennis that everyone knows. I mean, I feel like around here I'm not allowed to talk about it, but like we all know there's a ball at Costco that we can buy, and I think it might be literally probably the most popular ball in the USTA.
It is the most sold tennis ball worldwide now.
It has to be, right?
The Penn Championship ball. Obviously, that one will get an update as well, based on the raw materials that I talked about. So all its rubber will also come out of the Philippines moving forward. So again, there we'll also have a lot more quality control and a lot more consistency. I think the big thing for me is I do see a lot of social media and everything out there where people just start comparing a Wilson US Open or a Dunlop ATP ball to a Penn Championship ball, and that's not correct. That's comparing apples and oranges, to be honest. Because our competitors do have a championship ball as well. Yes. And our championship ball is the best in the market. Hence the reason it is by far the most sold. However, we get kind of a bad rap, I would say, when we compare a US Open versus a championship ball, because of course a US Open ball is outperforming a championship ball. However, it's also 2.5 times in price. Yeah. So I think that's the big point I just wanted to make.
No, absolutely. And that was something when I was doing my research. The championship balls are pinpoint felt. They're not woven. It's an entry level. It's like not your premium experience. It's a great practice ball, but it's not going to be the most durable. It's not. Yes. So, and if you want to explain further, you're more than welcome to.
It is a needle felt ball, and at the same time, you're shopping for value. Right. At this point, the ball is the longest lasting championship needle felt ball out there, and that's what players are looking for. They're not looking for an enhanced playing experience, and I think that's what we are now trying to change with the Pro Penn franchise, I will call this. As I said, there might be more coming later on. So with that Pro Penn franchise, that is really the most elevated, high premium tennis ball in the market.
real quick, because I do want to talk about sustainability efforts because that's part of my favorite topic. But could you explain to our listeners the difference between regular duty and extra duty?
Yes. So extra duty, we focus on that on hardcore play for durability purposes. And then regular duty has been kind of established in the US market and Canada as well as the clay court ball.
Yeah.
In Europe, to be honest, it doesn't really exist too much, but in the US, this has been established as the extra duty as the more durable hard court ball, and then the regular duty for clay courts.
And I know there's been a lot of controversy on the Pro Tour, and we're not pros over here, but was it true that WTA was using regular duty and men ATP was using extra duty?
It depends on the tournaments.
Okay.
But yeah, that is how certain tournaments handle it. Again, it depends on the tournament on how they want to handle it, but yeah,
okay.
that is kind of common.
Okay, that's what I thought. And one's just a little bit lighter, and is that true also? Sorry.
That again, it's perception.
Okay.
That the regular duty
or the core is a little thicker.
The core is the same.
Okay.
But the regular duty plays a little faster, a little livelier.
Okay.
And then the extra duty is little bit more durable.
Got it. Okay. Let's talk about the sustainability efforts because, again, I am a big fan of recycling, and I started a recycling program at my college. And a long time ago, someone was like, "Oh no, you can't recycle tennis cans," and I was like, "Wait, what?" So, talk to me about the new efforts that you guys are doing.
So we actually started this in about 2022 when we went. Most of your listeners will probably remember we had the clear can with the full-on shrink sleeve all the way down. And then we changed this we call it the milky can and shortened the sleeve actually. So now it is easier for recycling scanners once it gets to the recycling facility to pick it up and therefore also get recycled. However, we know there's not too many products within the US that actually get recycled. So for the US market specifically, we needed to come up with a different solution as on top of the recycling. And we've partnered with this company. It's called Midori Bio. And they have provided us with an additive that we can put in there in case the product goes into landfill. If it goes into landfill and it comes in contact with the soil, then it actually biodegrades within 3 to 5 years.
That's cool.
Usually, this can would take hundreds of years to biodegrade on its own. But now with this new additive from Midori Bio, it actually biodegrades within 3 to 5 years. So
that's really cool.
Being the biggest supplier in terms of tennis balls, it was important to us because obviously we're creating a lot of resources here that also need to, at some point, get recycled or biodegrade, because otherwise we would create a big mess.
I love this. When you were telling that story, I was just thinking, I'm going to do my own little marketing campaign and make little flower holders and put it in the soil and just be like, it's going to biodegrade in a couple of years.
Yeah, it's exciting because we're the first company that have tackled this project. On the biodegradable portion, because obviously other companies have worked on the recycling portion, but within the US, actually only 9% of products get actually recycled.
Yeah.
So what happens to the other 91%? So we needed to find a solution there. And in Europe, obviously recycling is very, very common. However, in the US, there's a lot of different laws around it, and you can have recycling changes from one city to the next. So biodegrading was the right way to do it.
That's amazing. And it's so American of me, but I didn't realize that Europe was much more sustainable. And someone said something in the meeting about the way the trash is handled. They don't go to landfill. Your trash doesn't go to landfills?
There is landfill. However, obviously every household has a lot of different bins. Again, it also depends on the countries, because each country handles recycling a little differently.
Okay.
But usually the norm is that there's different bins in each household for recycling, for glass, for landfill, etc. So
got it.
It's definitely a lot more prevalent.
It's happening a lot more. Well, we love that also about these new cans, and the sustainability makes it even more of a reason to keep checking out the new innovations. There's been a lot of hot takes on tennis balls. Do you have any tennis ball hot takes or anything that would like shock and surprise our listeners?
I think I mentioned it earlier. I think the biggest belief out there right now is that every tennis ball manufacturer made changes to cut costs, and that's why the quality went down, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
There was just so much demand with so little supply, which led to backlog to, in the end, people are still producing these by hand. Yes, there's machinery that does it, but there's going to be mistakes when this happens. And then on top of that, I think, Pro Penn, I mean, we're the only tennis brand tennis ball brand that is solely focused on tennis balls. Penn has been around since 1912, so over 100 years. We've been producing first rubber and then actually tennis balls, so we're specialized in this, and it's an exciting time because we have a strong market share, but we haven't done anything over the last 15 to 20 years to educate the younger consumer. In our office, we have these super cool advertisements from the 90s, which are just amazing. But really, since then, like there's a new younger consumer that has started playing tennis, and we haven't done much to educate that consumer around our brand. So there's a lot coming in the next 2 to 3 years, I would say, on the Penn side.
Something else that you said earlier that I just kind of want to bring back up was the people working in the factory in the Philippines have been in the tennis ball industry forever.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, with moving from China to the Philippines, we definitely needed not to only find the right spot, but the people in the end is always the most important thing. And we have a great team there that has been in the tennis ball industry specifically for 25 plus years, and all of our management team has been there for more than 20 years. So it's really exciting to see that we have a wealth of knowledge within our team there, and so we're pretty much ready to go.
Yeah. My hot take with tennis balls, and I've been campaigning for this forever, is that no matter how good or bad of a player you are, you still can appreciate a premium tennis ball.
Absolutely. I think that's one thing we also want to mention is, like you said, I know I talked about the Penn Championship ball earlier, and that's for everyone. However, this Pro Penn Marathon Plus ball is also for everyone. It's in the end your decision of, do you want to spend a little bit more and get a more premium experience, or are you looking more for value?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you that even a 2.0, 2.5 player, they can spend a little bit more on the tennis ball and have a very premium experience.
And it's the most durable ball, so it's going to last more than your one match.
Absolutely, and that's always been our mantra with the marathon. Hence the reason it was called marathon in the first place. So the goal is that this is going to continue be the longest lasting tennis ball in the market.
I love that. Is there anything we missed? Anything you want to tease a little bit more about? Maybe something coming later in the year?
Well, we have been not only working on this ball, there's another one coming, which is going to be the cream of the crop, the premium version of this one, I would call it. So keep your eyes out around the holiday season later this year. The last thing I do want to mention is, I know people might not even know this or consider it. I mean, HEAD and Penn are one company. So in the North American market, we obviously have the Penn balls, whereas in Europe, we have the HEAD balls. They are different, so they're not the exact same. However, there's so much wealth and knowledge we have on the HEAD side that can benefit from the Penn side. But also, like I said, we've been the leading tennis ball manufacturer for how many years, and we've been in this industry for so long. So the HEAD side can also benefit from the Penn side.
Absolutely. And just real quick, because I got a little bit of a sneak peek, and I'm not going to spoil it, I'm not going to say anything, but I have high expectations for something coming out towards the holidays. So much so that we've heard a lot about new balls, new technology, all these things, and I'm curious what the crossover looks like and what it's like to get your ball at one of these like major tournaments, and maybe that's something our audience might not understand or realize how that actually works.
Yeah, so currently how it works with tournaments, it's sponsorships. So we get approached, or we approach a tournament and we pay for being a sponsor. we obviously used to be the sponsor at Indian Wells. However, with the swings that are currently going on right now, that the ATP and WTA are requesting that there's multiple tournaments in the same country or in the same region being played with the same balls. Our contract was up at the end of 2025, and our competitors that still had Miami had the contract still until 2027, I believe. So we actually did not even have the chance to bid on it.
Oh, wow.
Because their contract still was going on, so they won Indian Wells. But that's definitely something we're going to look at into the future as well, especially with these new balls coming that are really for the premium performance line, especially also with the new factory, because they will have a separate line that is specifically for our pro player tournaments, because all of these balls are even more drastically checked by. So it's kind of funny when you see the comments online and the players having a little freak out of the balls.
Yeah, we need to educate. Like, we've seen like the racket factories, the string factories. Now we need a behind the scenes of the ball factory to imagine how do you know how long it takes from like beginning to end to make a can of tennis balls?
Yeah, it usually takes about 120 to 150 days.
That's insane.
So, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a long process.
Wow. So the next time you're like, oh, and you hit the ball as hard as you can out the court. Remember how long it took to make that and give it to your dog instead. I was going to say my last hot take might be that maybe ATP and WTA should pick the balls.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
I don't know.
They
didn't ask
me. That could be an option.
Could be
I mean, in the end,
option.
It is tricky, right? Because even if you're going to swings, this is my hot take.
Yeah,
so
there we go. Let's go. I want to hear it.
I'm giving one back to you. My hot take is, you're playing in Indian Wells. You're playing on super gritty courts in dry heat during the day. However, in cold nights, so you have already very different playabilities between day and night. And then the week later, you're going to super humid Miami.
Sea level.
Is the ball really the big impact there, or is it?
Are we all just mental and just need a reason to blame our losses? Yes.
Yeah, I haven't heard a single pro player complain about the balls when they won the tournament. So
that's a good point. That's such a good point.
But I'm a tennis player myself, so I totally get it how the players feel, and I mean, it does have an impact. However, in the end, both players are playing with the same ball, so it may favor one player out of the other one. So it is what it is.
Well, with that, you can let the audience know the new tagline, which I thought was really cool for this whole kind of like franchise of new tennis balls.
Yes, so we're working on a whole campaign around Penn, and it's called the heartbeat of the game.
Nice.
Because in the end, without tennis balls, you can't play. So we feel like needing the balls, and that's really the heartbeat of our game that we all love. So
it actually connects us.
So we are really excited to not only first we showcase Penn, and then we showcase the new balls as well. So it's a cool time for Penn.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us and talking all things tennis balls. And I know you're one of the ones that like watches what people are saying. So if people have questions or comments, I'm sure you're going to keep up with them. But feel free, everyone listening, to ask all your questions, because usually these conversations about things that we don't really think about spur a lot more conversation. So
exciting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle.
And we'll make sure you guys get your Pro Penn Marathon balls starting July, was it 26th?
20th.
July 20th, a week early. July 20th. That's it.
Yes.
Happy hitting.